Thank you, Rafi. It is now my pleasure to introduce Quan Lee. Quan Lee teaches courses on world politics and international political economy at Texas A&M University. He is the co-recipient of the 2003 Best Article on Democratization Award from the American Political Science Association. He has co-authored 2 books, Democracy and Economic Openness in an Interconnected System, and Politics and Foreign Direct Investment. A portion of his work has focused on how investment flows are related to peace.
Let me begin by thanking a lot of people, and Liz and Kathleen, and also Carol here, and Rebecca, who just left you guys here, and they all have been really great in having us here, and I really feel honored in having this opportunity speaking to you about something that I personally feel really excited about. And so the charge we get from Rebecca and Liz and Kathleen and Carol is to talk about the ideas that we developed. And so within 15 minutes, and my goal is to talk about 3 things. And one is that I would like to give you a little bit overview about what we have learned as contemporary political scientists and using sort of statistical and mathematical techniques. And then I would elaborate on sort of 2 ideas that I was involved in developing. And finally, which is to me is more interesting part, is where do we go from here? And I want to challenge you and challenge ourselves about what are the ideas that we haven't developed and which are pretty important. And so the topic is, can capitalism contribute to peace in the world? As you can see, here's a lot of money, and here's peace. So we go this way, and actually a couple of days later will be the World Day of Peace. It's September 21st. You probably couldn't see very well right down here. Capitalism is a very controversial idea. So, and on the left is very traditional, and I'm really happy that Rafi talked about the history of it, and I think I got a snippet of what Patrick's going to talk about. I think our 3 presentations are going to be really nice compliments. And this is essentially sort of the conventional wisdom about why capitalism is good. As time goes on, as more and more countries adopt capitalism, as it spreads across countries and continents, you observe the standard of living increase dramatically, right? We're living, we're using things our ancestors would never even imagine, right? Now, but it remains enormously controversial. And here is a Pew Research Center survey result in December 2011. And here is asking the public respondents to talk about the view of political terms. Do you feel positive or negative about the term? The first one is socialism. 60% of respondents say they feel negatively about it, and 30-some% saying that they feel positive about it. Now, capitalism. Capitalism, 50% of the respondents in America and feel positive about it, but 40% feel negative about it. Well, that doesn't, these 2 don't go together. If this is what we feel, and we should all be here, and why do we get a 40% of people who don't like it? And something for us to think about. And this is a very, very famous painting and from 1911. And so you probably couldn't see very well, but you can go Google, and the Google term is pyramid of capitalist system, and right down here. So at the bottom is that we feed them, so these are the workers, we feed them and we work for them, and these are the people who are enjoying themselves. And then you got the soldiers that we shoot at them, and we get the people who are, say, we fool them, serving ideological purposes. And then on top here is that we rule them, and this whole thing is the capitalism, right? So this is very famous, and very famous because it coincides with these 40% of people. And there's something that these 40% of people believe in that's represented in this hierarchy that some people at the bottom are not very happy about, right? Okay, so because this is a controversial concept, let's see how we define it. And Rafi provided you with one definition. And here I understand this is a very general audience with a variety of different people, different backgrounds. So I wouldn't give you an academic version of definition. I would go with the source that all of us would think about, even from elementary school, the dictionary. Oh, I did something, which is not good. The Merriam-Webster dictionary. So in this definition, and I copied, and I give it's not plagiarism, because I give credit to Merriam-Webster. It basically has three attributes. One, private ownership. Second, private investment decision making. Third, free market competition. So this is the three elements in the conventional definition of what capitalism is. Is that a consensus? Not so fast. Not so fast is that capitalism comes in variety. And this is a definition very befitting for this affair, what we call free market capitalism. But wait a second, we have a lot of countries practicing welfare capitalism. So if you're in Nordic countries, if you're in Western Europe, you'll probably be very familiar with this. And a lot of the debates and controversies we have in this country right now is that this is such a bad idea, right? And then there's a state capitalism, and you look at countries in China and China and that's developing capitalist free market right now, but a lot of your companies are state-owned. That's a state capitalism. And Patrick speak to that point and later on. And the other thing that's very important, and I went to Google today to say, okay, so United States has always been cited as the model of laissez-faire free market economy. Do we have state-owned companies? So guess what Google gave me? So we have Amtrak, we have U.S. Postal Service, we have one company, it's uranium enrichment company, called USEC. And last year, and 2 years ago, we have GM Chrysler and even AIG. They all state-owned, right? Because the government had shareholding in them. And then, United States also has a wide range of government-sponsored companies. You're very familiar with them. Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and there's one called Farmer Home Loan Bank. So is United States a true laissez-faire market economy? If it is, we should observe those things exist. But they do exist, so what does it mean for us? So this may be just a mixed economy, right, to varying degrees. And a true laissez-faire free market economy simply doesn't exist. Okay, which one do you have in mind when you think about this? We analysts, we always rely on this definition when we analyze, but we never think about the contamination of those other dimensions. And can you exclude the types that you didn't think of when you do your analysis? But in reality, they exist, but you exclude them, you sanitize your analysis by assuming them away, but they're not away, and they do exist, even in the United States. Right? Something for us to think about. Okay, so peace. What is peace? Right? So once again, let's go to this big source. It gives us 5 possible definitions. Right? So the first one is state of tranquility or quiet, where it leads to a freedom from civil disturbance. Well, I'm thinking about civil war. Right? That would be one type of civil disturbance. The state of security or order within a community provided for by law or custom. So I'm thinking about terrorism. Right? That would be a contrary example against this. So I'm thinking about that freedom from disquieting or oppressive thoughts or emotions. That's something that we international relations scholars never analyze. I'll pass on this one. Harmony in personal relations. Well, That's too metaphysical for us. So a state or period of mutual concord between governments, that we love it. That's the one we study the most, right? So a pact or agreement to end hostilities between those who have been at war or in a state of enmity, that's what we're thinking about. Okay, finally, the last one is just rhetorical. I'll skip that. So the minimal list relevant notion for international relations scholars is that the absence of political violence, peace refers to the absence of political violence between countries, that will be referring to interstate conflict, within a country, that's civil conflict, civil disturbance, and between government and non-state actor, we're thinking about terrorism. So the question that we are being dealt and handed to and to answer is, can capitalism think about the sanitized free market version or other versions? Can that reduce interstate conflict? Can capitalism reduce civil conflict? And can capitalism reduce terrorism? Right? That's what we really need to address. Okay. But we have done a lot of work here. We've done some work here. We've done the least amount of work here. Okay? So I will focus on, given the time constraint, I'll focus on what we have come to know about does capitalism affect interstate conflict. The first argument is very classical. It's classical liberalism argument, is that it's essentially the conventional wisdom that Rafi talked about earlier, is that capitalism helps efficiency, helps development. As a result, if you fight a war, it's bad for you because you lose business. Business is good, profit is good. You don't want to lose business, you don't want to lose consumption, so you want to avoid war. We call that the development opportunity cost argument. A second argument is that private property and competitive market actually matter. This is one important component of laissez-faire, and this is where Patrick has a sort of a claim to that argument. I'll let him speak to that. And the third one is the Professor Michael Mousseau. It proposed this new explanation saying, well, the way that capitalism affects peace is because capitalism provides opportunity for a lot of contracts to be struck. But if you have people are used to this contracting, contract-intensive economy, then they would learn how to deal with grievances and differences, right? And as a result, leads to peace. Now, the other one that I was involved in developing is called the signaling argument. So I'll be very quick here. I'm running out of time. So imagine that this story is different from the others. Imagine the U.S. and China, right? Not U.S. and China. China and Japan right now, they're fighting over a piece of territory, right? Very, very controversial right now. Now, the argument here is that the economic ties between China and Japan really help them to tone down the controversy and make it more possible that they can resolve this peacefully. So you have to do a little bit of thought experiment. Imagine a world in which China and Japan have no economic ties. They don't trade at all, no investment at all. Then what they're going to do is to start with shouting match, and then the other side didn't concede. They would just stand to say, well, I don't know what you want, and I want this, but nobody can believe the other one. This is what we call bluffing in poker game, right? So because both sides bluffing, there's no way to know, they end up fighting. But we now understand from conventional, from the sort of one of the game theory models that we talk about in international relations, is that war is costly. War costs lives, war costs profit, so as a result, we want to avoid it. If two sides can come to agreement, if they know exactly what the other side wants, they will always be able to come to an agreement. We call it, under complete information, they can reach a deal. Okay, so now one problem with the absence of trade and investment is that there's no means for them to tell the other side where my reservation price is. So the way that investment and trade works, because they indicate, they provide another means for the government to manipulate. By manipulating and hurting the economic tie and the investment tie between countries, they're able to show how much I really care about this piece of territory. So this is the value of what we call signaling value of economic ties. Given that, so as a result, you see that the Chinese demonstrators are burning Japanese vehicles in China, and that really helped them to indicate their resolve, right? This caused a lot of damage to Japanese business. How much more cost are you willing to bear, right? So that's the sort of the argument we did. Now, all those are showing that capitalism is good for peace, but remember, capitalism is never even. So there's always some countries develop faster than others. There's always some countries are more dependent on other countries in certain aspects. The United States is very dependent on China right now for financing of national debt, right? That's a real problem for the United States. Now, one thing that Rafi and I we did is to provide a wide theoretical explanation. We have a mathematical model in which we incorporate this profiteering motive of firms, and because of that motive, that motivate them to initiate conflict under certain context. Right? I'm running out of time, so I'll have to leave the details to Q&A. Anyway, so overall, let me summarize. So does capitalism lead to world peace? In interstate conflict, we have more supporting evidence that it seems it does, right? But we have a myriad of causal mechanisms that we don't really know which one is right, or maybe all of them are correct, right? We don't really know that. And then on civil conflict, we have some supporting evidence it works, but we really still know very little. And on terrorism, this is the least studied area, and we need to do more work, okay? So there's a future work, I'll skip that. But I want to show you one last slide. Take 1 minute. You're going to love this. This is hilarious. So this is capitalism according to capitalists. This is capitalism according to socialists. So capitalism according to capitalists, they are mutually beneficial. The pie is growing high. Everybody benefits. But capitalism according to socialists is that you have a gun and you have money and you're grabbing my labor. And that's what I want to show you. And that really tells us these two images probably are in the minds of many people, one or the other. But why is it we only incorporate this in our research, but not this one in our analysis? Something we need to think about. Thank you.